goes for goal and finishes off the PSG victory.
Nuno Mendes est lancé, Nuno Mendes va vite, Nuno Mendes passe devant Quadrado, le tir, oh il est beau celui-là, le but de Nuno Mendes.
You know the football, it is what it is.
Le premier but de Ronald Colomboigny avec le Paris Saint-Germain, ah quelle joie.
Hello and welcome to PSG Review, also known as the show recovering from a week to remember. 2-4-1 wins in a matter of couple of days. The in-form Olympique Lyonnais were beaten in what felt like one of the easiest matches of the season. More of that in a moment. PSG Review, also known as the show looking into the future, near future. As we will very much do in this specific episodes, we have a quick look at the black and yellow team from the Ruhr area, Borussia Dortmund. More of that imminently. My name is Mikko. Thank you very much for joining us once again. It's always appreciated, and if you want, you can also talk to me online at PSG Review Pod on Twitter and at PSG Review on Instagram and TikTok. Share and recommend to friends and enemies alike, but more than anything else, thank you for sharing this moment with me. After beating Barcelona earlier the same week, PSG was welcoming Olympique Lyonnais to Parc des Princes. The women had played Lyon the night before in their All-French Champions League semi-final duel, and more of that later. But on the men's side, while Lyon had an absolutely awful autumn from their angle at least, they had managed to bounce back pretty well in 2024. And before this match, they actually had more Ligue 1 points than us since the beginning of the new year, and they of course had made it also into the Coupe de France final, where we will play them once more. So their position, the Ligue 1 table, is slightly misleading when it comes to their actual form. They've risen from the gutter in recent months and are having reasonable resurrection of their campaign. The PSG squad was pretty heavily rotated with notable absentees from the starting lineup. Kylian Mbappe, Ousmane Dembele and Lucas Hernandez, for instance. Nuno Mendes wasn't even on the bench, although he isn't apparently suffering from anything particular. And the goals started almost immediately. One own goal for Lyon, two for Gonzalo Ramos and one for Lucas Beraldo as well. PSG really got one of the easiest wins of the whole season. That's certainly how it felt, but not because Lyon was awful. Quite the opposite, because, like said, while they did have a historically poor autumn, they've been getting their act together and they did show a high standard against us. Just not compared to us, but they have been in great form during this early part of 2024. The PSG squad might have been heavily rotated, but rotated this season doesn't necessarily mean worse. The cohesion was top-notch. Vitinha and Bradley Barcola were just joy to watch. Gonzalo Ramos did his job exactly like he's supposed to do, exactly like a target player should. I will have to say this thing about Bradley Barcola, who, like I said, is doing so well, and you could have separate debate whether it's good for Lyon, all this thing, but Barcola was really lucky that the former Olympique Lyonnais director Jean-Michel Aulas wasn't there to stop his transfer anymore to Paris, which he inevitably would have done, because Barcola would have been stuck with Lyon mediocrity for a season or two before being sold to another league somewhere. That's how Ligue 1 loses its talent every season, pretty much. Now he has had a great opportunity to upgrade within France and play on the highest level in Europe. I'm not comparing him directly to Kylian Mbappe, but essentially it was quite a rare feature in Ligue 1 that one of its best young promising players at the time, Kylian Mbappe, from Monaco, that he actually moved within Ligue 1, within the French system. So that is something that doesn't happen too often, and hopefully PSG will be able to keep that happening more in future. Understandably, Lyon supporters will have vastly different interpretation of the events when it comes to Barcola, but if he himself is happy, then we are in a positive state of affairs. After the match, Barcola made strongest comments on his Instagram account, saying that the result was, and I quote the translation, God's justice. Well, I don't know which team God supports in football, and perhaps Barcola had his reasons to say this. I think that he felt very provoked. But it is really unfortunate that the Lyon supporters have alienated him like that. He feels like having to make such a strong statement against this formative club. I mean, after all, it is his formative club. I'm glad he is one of us now, but there's something quite melancholic about this whole phenomenon. And I guess our supporters would have done the same, like many turned against Kouassi back then when he chose to leave us and go to Bayern. Of course, he did also go for free, but he was very young person at the time. I think he was 16. He was still a child. Barcola, of course, was a little bit older and also brought in a good transfer fee to Lyon. So he didn't leave them hanging in any way, in my opinion. Vitinha and to an extent Fabian Ruiz, who of course wasn't playing in this match, they have had far better second season, what the first one was last year. There can be many reasons for that, but one of them I think definitely is that there is no Lionel Messi or Neymar Jr. in the build-up dropping to midfield. It can be very confusing for these players, like Vitinha and Ruiz, when they know their role. They have a very specific role in a system. They're not kind of like a free rollers who are doing whatever they want to do. Because what happens is that players who have these more defined roles, they can really struggle when you have other players next to them who do whatever they please, even if those players would be very good as those players were, but everyone needs to adjust around them. The same kind of applies to Gonzalo Ramos as well, who often scores in the absence of Mbappe, it seems. It's as simple as PSG playing to the target player, and no matter what your role is, but if Mbappe is there, the balls will tend to go to him. He is the target, but he won't be there where target players usually play in the box. It's more predictable football for the opponent, but he, of course, is skilled enough to make it work. He has scored a lot of goals for PSG. Marquinhos was being celebrated in this match, the most matches ever for Paris Saint-Germain. Great scenes after the match, and when he was substituted off, the Parc des Princes were showing him all the love, and this is a huge deal. This is a record that won't be soon in anyone else's possession, and the club and the fans, the whole stadium, the entire operation went all in as Marquinhos walked into the massive old PSG logo next to the stadium speaker, a legend in his own right, Michel Montana.
Mesdames et messieurs, le moment tant attendu est venu. À notre numéro 5, Marcos Aouas Correa. Pour Marquis, ici c'est Ici c'est
un honneur pour moi, c'est une grande fierté. Porter ce maillot, ces couleurs, c'est une responsabilité énorme. C'est un club immense qui a des grandes ambitions.
Marquinhos talked about his pride to play for a team as immense and with such ambitions as PSG and to be its captain.
On a une fin de saison avec des beaux objectifs à aller chercher. Le championnat, il est là, il est ouvert. On va aller chercher ce titre. La finale de Coupe de France, elle est là, on va y aller chercher. Et la Ligue des Champions, elle est là, et on va aussi aller chercher ça là.
Objectives for the rest of the season. We are going to go and get the Ligue 1 title. The Coupe de France final is here, and we're going to go for it as well. And the Champions League is also here, and we're going to go and get that too. We are going to give 100%. Absolutely wonderful evening for him and for all of us. The general mood within the club is great. PSG could secure the Ligue 1 trophy, the Hexagoal as it's called, which I hear will change for the next season with all the new branding coming in anyways. That could be ours the next Wednesday already if we beat Lorient and if Monaco doesn't beat Lille. At this part of the season, things are getting a little bit mathematic. It could happen, we don't know yet. You might know when you are listening to this if it's after that round, but we will get there. Chances for us not winning the title are seemingly very, very, very slim. And it feels great to feel great. It feels good to have this positivity around the team. Ambition and confidence. Ambition, we have had. Confidence, often less so, but anything can happen, yet nothing is guaranteed. But this is the wave you have to ride. We've even become so used to the idea that Warren Zaire-Emery is brilliant. It's like we forget to mention him when we talk about PSG, yet there he is, played his 50th Ligue 1 match, even if he has only very recently turned 18 years old. Marco Asensio also had a very solid match, a good couple of great catches by Gianluigi Donnarumma. Others too were playing well, and it was just a fun match to watch. 3 points, 0 injuries, rest for the key players, and a lot of positivity in the air in general. I'll take that. We are fast approaching the Champions League semi-final. Only 4 teams left in Europe, and if you would have told me this last summer or even last autumn, I would have been very happy with that. I didn't have any specific expectations for this campaign in terms of continental football. I was hoping for a good run, as I always do, because it depends so much on the lack of draw, injuries, and many small details. We have been much luckier this season with our opponents than before as well. It's okay. There are clubs who always get easy opponents, so it certainly feels. We had by far the most difficult group stage, and next round is a round 2 between Dortmund and PSG this season. 2 teams from our group stage in the top 4 of Europe. It's quite remarkable, to be honest with you, but looking at the knockout matches, we haven't had to face the toughest teams on paper. And when you are lucky like that, and when you are lucky with suspensions and injuries or lack thereof, well, sometimes it can happen that things go better than you might have even expected. That's why I don't ever really set a minimum expectation for the season before it starts. Certainly not for Champions League. Last time when we had an easier draw, we were in the final. That was in 2020. But nothing is guaranteed, and you have to play every match as they come. PSG and Dortmund, of course, have played against each other twice this season during the group stage. There's no such thing as the aggregate result of those matches. It's not a thing. But if you did count it, PSG would have won 3-1. But Dortmund won the group. That still counts for something. It's actually quite interesting in that in this whole season, whatever happens, Dortmund will have been the team at the end of the season that PSG has played the most times. So it's not a domestic opponent. We will have played Lyon 3 times, Nice, and so on and so forth. And Rennes, of course, the Coupe de France kind of teams from Ligue 1. But Dortmund will have played 4 times when the season ends. For us, we would say that PSG has had a positive trend, and while I enjoy a good challenge rather than some sort of, let's call it Manchester City group stage experience, I was initially worried last autumn that the extremely high quality group stage roster came very quickly for Luis Enrique's project, as the whole squad had more or less been overhauled during the summer before. So in that sense, I was very happy we got through, and since that, it has been much better. It has been improving. We have very positive trends. Things are looking quite good. And both teams, PSG and Dortmund, are undoubtedly full of sense of positivity and that anything is possible after the quarters. I was watching our match against Barcelona with our local fan club in a bar, and literally the next TV was showing the Dortmund Atletico Madrid match, and the Dortmund fans were as tense and as elated as we were. The season in the Bundesliga has been a little bit unusual. I admit I don't follow it in any detailed way. I'm not an expert, far from it. But of course, Bayern Munich has not won the title for the first time in a decade, or 11 years actually. And Bayer Leverkusen have done the unthinkable with so far invincible season. Actually, they were playing against Dortmund on Sunday, and Dortmund very nearly gave them their first defeat. And this, by the way, includes Europa League as well. But in the final moments, they got their equalizer. that's a bit beside the point, of course, but I rate Bayer Leverkusen season incredibly highly. It's a bigger achievement than most, and we will see how they can finish the campaign. But if they go all the way to the end unbeaten in all competition, that is pretty outrageous thing to have been able to do. But we are not here talking about them. Who knows? We play them next season in the Champions League. We will see, but that's for then, not for now. The only thing maybe I would add to that is that I'm not sure how this impacts Dortmund, or even if it does at all, that Leverkusen was able to do the thing that they haven't been able to do while banging their heads to achieve it for 11 last seasons. Perhaps that's not even consideration in their mind. Probably they have better things to focus on, like Champions League, for instance. Dortmund is currently 5th on the table in Bundesliga, yet in the top 4 in Europe after winning the so-called group of death, which, like said many times over, we were also part of. Basically, as things stand, they are outside of the Champions League for the next season unless they take over Leipzig, which is very much possible, of course, as is, of course, winning the Champions League itself. But while we have potentially by then a little less domestic pressure on our back when it's time to play against them, it's perfectly possible that we have the Liga unsecured. They do have to focus until the last match day of their Bundesliga season. So what has changed since the group stage? A lot has changed for us. Certainly that's how I feel. We have been able to build a momentum, improve a lot, quite a lot. Sometimes we forget to what extent this Luis Enrique project is brand new one. Dortmund, of course, is riding high. The Champions League, they also have Jadon Sancho back, and this isn't a team to undermine. I doubt that anyone does undermine them anyway. No serious analysis of these two matches should think that it will be easy for anybody. Not for PSG, not for Dortmund. Both teams are in the semi-finals on merit and for very good reasons. Dortmund has been really good at home. It's a great stadium with a great fan base, one of the great atmospheres in the European football. The first leg will be played in Dortmund, and their home stadium was really the thing that secured their top spot in the group stage of Champions League. I don't know if that's a simplification of it. Of course, it wasn't the only thing, but they were very good at home, even if admittedly we, PSG, got a draw there, and they were pretty lucky to defend that draw, actually, that PSG didn't take all 3 points there and actually then win that group. It was our match to win, but that didn't happen. Either way, I continue with what I have been saying before in previous rounds too. If we have the mentality, we will have the ability, the quality to take care of the situation. Like I said, it won't be easy. Now we just need to keep the positive momentum, hopefully confirm the league title before we start these matches and avoid injuries. That, of course, by the way, is a thing that has separated this year for Paris from many of the previous ones. There has been no significant injuries. The players have been fairly well available. Some matches have been missed here and there by some people, but the squad depth is better even if somebody is unavailable. And in the Champions League, they always say that it's about small nuances, tiny details that make the difference in the end. And this season, we have been lucky. It's okay to acknowledge and admit that we have been lucky. Not many injuries. The draws have been uncharacteristically possible ones. You have to keep a cool head and focus, but you also have to give this the shot that it deserves. Carpe diem, and with a little bit of luck on your side, anything is possible. PSG men might have given Olympique Lyonnais a bit of a beating on the weekend, but of course the PSG women were also playing against Lyon, and in their case it was the Champions League semi-final. Very frustratingly, they conceded 3 goals after leading by 2. It was a great beginning for the match. Marie-Antoinette Katoto scored 2 goals, but then when it was time for the substitutions, I guess what happened is that the squad depth became an issue, and Lyon was able to score 3 goals and have a 1-goal advantage in the beginning of the second leg, which will be played at Parc des Princes next weekend. Now, if you are in Paris next weekend, go and get yourself a ticket. These matches are quite cheap. The admission is very low. The price of the ticket is not going to bankrupt you, but we do need full support for this team so that they can make their way to the Champions League final Imagine that. It's perfectly possible. 3-2 incidentally is what the scoreline was after the first Barcelona match for the men, so evidently it's a result that can be turned around. So if you're in town, don't miss the opportunity to show some love for them. Last weekend, I had the pleasure to be part of Paris Never Sleep show, which was the first edition of English-speaking content for Paris No Limit. If you are using Instagram, you might know them. They have well over 700,000 followers there, including many, if not most of our players in both men's and women's teams. The show was hosted by my friend and friend of the show, Stu, from Parisian Londoner, and he asked me to join them. That show is now available on YouTube on Paris No Limit channel, so go and have a look at that, watch the show. You can listen to us and press like. All those things that you do there online on YouTube. Up next for the men's team is Lorient on Wednesday. Like said, if PSG wins this and Monaco doesn't get full 3 points against Lille, of course a tough opponent, then it could be already as soon as that the championship has been confirmed for this season. But we can't really count on that, especially when it's not in our own control yet. So there's still these matches to be played. And Le Havre then on Saturday. And for women's team, there's a midweek derby against Paris FC. And then on Sunday, it's the big one, the decisive second leg on the Champions League semifinals. We follow all these topics, and you can also follow them through the social networks where I talk about them on Twitter at PSG Review Pod and on Instagram and TikTok at PSG Review. Like, share, subscribe, rate, review, recommend, and most of all, listen to these PSG Review episodes if they are something that you enjoy. My name is Mikko. We will talk more next time, but until that, peace.